And welcome, folks, to another edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider. Back with you again this week with the focus shifting from the portal, mostly from 2026, although Michigan got a recent commitment to its 2026 class. But anyway, shifting the focus to 2027 and some of the early top targets on Michigan's recruiting board. A lot in store that we are also going to lay out and preview an interview, an update on Dakota Guerrant. There's been a lot of talk on our message board about Michigan not being in this top three for the number one prospect in the state, one of the top receivers in the country. Well, I mean, if you've been following us, it's not really new that Michigan wasn't or isn't on top. But we'll get into all of that a little bit later. Right now, it's time to introduce the best crew in the land when it comes to covering Michigan athletics, Michigan recruiting. Starting off first with Mr. Brice Marich. Bryce, how are you?
Solid. I joked coming into this, I've been snowed in. Hopefully, we're done with snow. Hopefully.
Yeah, good luck to that, Bryce. And Steve Lorenz. At least you don't have to deal with lake effect like Steve, right? You get lake effect snow out there?
I was just going to say, I mean, like I was telling the guys before we got on, shut up. I mean, we had 13 inches fall in 2 days this week already. So it's, we always get the band that goes over the lake a little bit. You know, like the coast actually gets a little less than we do. I think we were Hudsonville, just about 5 miles from here, got 14 and a half inches. I mean, we get it worse than everybody else, but used to it at this point in my life. It is what it is. So
I hear you. All right. So, fellas, I think it's fitting that we start off first talking about the newest member of Michigan's 2026 recruiting class. This is like call it a Gennaro Guilford special to add to a much needed position, giving some of the departures, not only from the current roster, but also from the recruiting class. So Ernest Nunley from Anaheim, California, in the fold. And Bryce, I think, as soon as he hit the portal, the crystal ball started going in for Nunley to Michigan. So, and I think yours is one of them. So let's talk about Ernest Nunley. What are the Wolverines getting in the newest member of the 2026 class?
Yeah, so you mentioned Guilford. I would also tag team Tyler Stockton.
Yeah, he recruited him at Boise State. That's right.
Right. So I'd put him in the mix as kind of that connection Michigan had going for Nunley. But 6 foot, 180 pounds. You watch his highlights right here. You know, he's played cover 1. He's played cover 3. I think the biggest thing that stands out to me about him is his willingness to tackle and his willingness to, be an island, one-on-one. He likes to come up and hit, but at the same time, he's sticky in coverage. I think that's the biggest thing is he's a guy that just makes plays, right? And he might not be the flashiest player compared to other guys you've seen on tape, but he's always making the right play and he's always in the right position. And sometimes that might not be what everyone wants to hear when it comes to evaluations, but that he just makes everything you're looking for. And I think for me personally, this is Michigan's way of almost replacing Andre Clark. I think, if Clark, he was a little bigger, a little more versatile than Nunley, even though I think Nunley, they had talked to him too about potentially safety, but he's going to start off at corner. So I think, for as late as it was in the process to pick up a guy that's familiar with the staff, fits the scheme, and he's going to come in and he can learn. He's not a guy you kind of need to just throw in the fire. He can just, take your time, year or two of development, I think, from there, and then he could be a quality player, and I think a quality piece of this defense. So I like the pickup. Again, not the flashiest, but again, he had a lot of big-time offers on the West Coast. This is a guy that the staff's really familiar with, and I think, again, that's something we're seeing on the trail is they're going to go off their evaluations and they're really sticking to their scouting. And this is a guy that they pinpoint as a guy that fits what they want.
Steve, Ernest Nunley.
Yeah, I think the aggressiveness that Michigan went with here says a lot about, how Jannara Guilford, Tyler Stockton maybe feel about Ernest Nunley as a player, right? I mean, not a guy we were familiar with at all last cycle for Michigan. I don't believe the last staff really recruited him. But, yeah, good coverage guy. Looks like he can play a variety of coverages. And, yeah, cornerback was a spot in this recruiting class that they needed to backfill after Andre Clark's departure. So, yeah, kind of like echoing what Bryce said, I think this is a microcosm of what we've seen with the winter evaluation so far as this staff sticking to their original evaluations. We'll talk more about the 27 class here in a little bit, but I don't think it's a coincidence that they dig right into a guy that they had high interest in coming out of high school, right? And so nice fill for Michigan, right? I mean, we know the rules aren't the rules are pretty much off the rails now. I believe he had signed with Cal, got out of it, whatever. Michigan's faced that too now, but yeah, no, I like the pickup. I think it's going to be what do we always say? He's got to marinate a little bit. I don't see him as a year one guy, but they don't need a year one guy right now at cornerback anyway. So good guy that they can work on and develop.
Yeah, you watch him and you see the characteristics that they must have really liked. Tyler Stockton, who had to be, I expect, was the plug. I'm sure Gennaro being out there that way at BYU was aware and knew about him too. But he mentioned specifically, I know, Bryce, you talking to him, or Blair talking to him, he mentioned specifically Tyler Stockton really being on him at Boise. And hopefully this works out with the last guy that Michigan was in it strong with. And he happened to be a Boise State commit, albeit at a different position in Mason Graham. But you watch Ernest Nunley, lot of off coverage. So you get a chance to see between that and what he shows on film and when he's playing cover 3, ball skills down the field. I mean, if you ever listen to Nick Saban talk about what they look for in defensive backs, one of the things that he talks about is, can guys play the ball in the air down the field? As one of the characteristics that rules you in or rules you out as one of their recruits. I think when you watch his physicality, when they're impressed, he doesn't look like a burner, but good, decent speed. But his physicality at the line of scrimmage, how he really can redirect guys, can really get a good jam and turn and run, and stay in phase. Guys who aren't necessarily track stars can mitigate their disadvantage with some physicality. He does that. And then the last thing, you see he'll stick his nose in there. Tackler. Can't, you like to say you could teach that, but that's a want-to thing that I don't know. There's just some corner. If a corner doesn't have that, I don't think you're gonna put it in him. He has that coming in the door. So nice pickup for Michigan. And as Bryce said, gives you some versatility in that you can see how he could convert into a good safety prospect. His range and ball skills, that would play perfectly as safety if you decided that that's what you wanted to do. But he talked about being a scheme fit. They're going to play press. They're going to play a lot of cover 3 now. That is tailor-made for him because it's what he's doing in high school. So I think a nice pickup in that regard. And a guy that they obviously scouted and linked and knew from their time out there in the Mountain West region of the country. So like they were able to do that. Nice replacement for some guys. Speaking of the Mountain West region, Bryce, you wrote on a guy recently that I saw the name and I said, man, this shows how old I am, how long I've been following recruiting, that I remember Sam Ngata's dad as a recruit. Everyone will talk about Haloti Ngata and his time with the Ravens and being a a pro guy. I remember when Haloti Ngata was a recruit and him talking at length about how much he liked Michigan early on, and Michigan not recruiting him. You talk about the woulda, coulda, shouldas, Steve Lorenz and Bryce. This is one that jumps out to me, but Michigan on his son. So tell the folks about Sam Ngata.
Utah kid, 6'4", 215 pounds, versatile. I mean, you watch his highlights. He's all over the field, offensively, defensively. I think what's intriguing about him too is, Sam, like you mentioned, those strong football genes, right? He comes from a family that has played football for a long time at a high level. And so when defensive end coach Lewis Powell stopped at his school and, you know, he talked to him for a sec and he offered him, they actually they're recruiting him at defensive end and edge rusher, which is ironic because if you look at his profile down below, he's listed as a linebacker. So I think that versatility, but more so that projection of what he's going to become. And they even joked to him, like, we're going to recruit you at defensive end, edge rusher, but it's kind of likely that you could slide inside, right? Knowing your frame and kind of football bloodlines, what you have, there's a solid chance that you do slide inside. So this is a guy I really like. You know, he's not the highest ranked, I think, but this is also a player that I feel is going to rise up in the rankings. Hit a very solid junior year. He's got a lot of big offers. He's even right now on the 24/7 Sports crystal ball favored to Oregon. So he's got, you know, pretty high competition going after him. And I just think with the connections he has, or he had with the BYU and Utah staff that have now carried over to Michigan, that's going to put Michigan as a top school and a top priority. And he's already told me, you know, he's looking to come up to Michigan as soon as possible. I know he's excited to see what they have to offer. And the biggest thing in what you're seeing with Michigan on the trail right now is reconnecting and rekindling those former relationships and bonds they've had with previous targets. And this is one that might be reemerged and become a bigger priority on Michigan's list that normally you wouldn't have seen in the past. So I think this is a quality guy. And again, there's a lot about his game that translates to what Michigan and this new staff wants to do, right? And I think also if you're projecting him to potentially move inside, can you really miss, especially knowing with his dad's background and stuff like that? So this is definitely one to keep an eye on for sure.
All right. This would be a full circle kind of moment for Haloti Ngata. It's kind of like, you know, how Kevin Garnett's daughter is now going to Michigan. He would have gone. He would have come to Michigan. But in the case of Haloti Ngata, they never really showed him, you know, he was talking about in interviews, but this was before like networks. This was in the early days of Rivals. I don't even know if the coaches at that time, like Bill Sheridan, the late Bobby Morrison, who I think was the recruiting coordinator at that time, I don't know that they were really looking at recruiting networks at that point. So they missed getting in on a guy who wound up being a star player at Oregon and then into the NFL. But getting his son at Michigan, that might be the next best thing. I don't think we're wishing into existence Michigan prioritizing him now based on the coaching staff, as you said, Bryce, already having a relationship with him. Now, talking about his frame, you wonder where he'll wind up. What will he be long term? But his athleticism is his athletic profile is unquestioned. And so you take that, the pedigree is there. And so you figure it out once you get him on campus. At worst, he's a physical, imposing type of linebacker. So we'll see how that goes. Another name, talking about being imposing. You got to be imposing if your name is Diesel, right? So Diesel Dark. What about him?
He's again, you talk about bloodlines. He is the younger brother of Jackson Dart, the New York Giants starting quarterback. But just because he's got the same last name doesn't mean he should be a guy overlooked. Like 6'1", 175 pounds. He flies to the ball, man. He is very active. He comes downhill. You see him playing safety. This is a guy that Jay Hill, the defensive coordinator, when he was out in Utah, made a priority during this past week to get to his school and make sure he got the offer and knew he was a top target for Michigan going forward. A lot to like about his game. It's going to be interesting to see kind of where he goes with his recruitment, because I know I had heard early talk he might want to stay on the West Coast, but Michigan wasn't involved. And a Michigan offer from early on, from a lot of aspects I found out with a lot of these kids in the Utah area, Arizona area, even California area, that probably weren't expecting Michigan ever to be in the mix. Now they're taking a second look at Michigan because of the staff, because of what they do. And this is a kid I could see long term and even down the road become a guy that actually ends up in this class, right? A lot to like about him, versatility, and he's a ball hawk, right? You're even seeing him right now in some films make incredible skills at wide receiver, right? So those ball skills, the instincts, that burst off the snap, you're seeing him. Everything about him just tells me he's a ball player. And that's what stands out about him. And I think, I hate to say this, but a lot of the film you're going to see with a lot of these guys, they might not be the flashiest, but you're always seeing them make big plays. And it reminds me of when I went to see Colston Loveland. In terms of maybe the competition wasn't always the greatest, and I don't think that's the same case in Utah because he is playing very good competition out there. But I think people chalk it up to, if it's not Texas, if it's not California, if it's not Florida, if it's not Georgia, the competition's not the greatest. And that's just not the case with these guys. But they make plays, and they're guys that I think overall are just quality football players. And that's something that might not show up in the star rankings. And I know a lot of people are obsessed with star rankings. Is he a top 100 player? Is he, 4 stars, top 247 player? They might not be, but Kyle Whittingham has shown that he doesn't need those players, right? He can win with those guys that have a chip on the shoulder. And this is a guy that I think, again, same as Sam Ngata, he's going to move up in the rankings, right? I think he's going to have a bigger spotlight on him, bigger profile on him going into his senior year, and he's going to take off, and he's going to become a guy that fans are going to become, hey, we need to get him in the class, and that's what sticks out to me as well.
So is there any time, I don't know if you know this, Bryce or Steve, Jackson Dart, his mentality, like I mean, you know what I'm getting
plays with an edge. He plays with an edge. He for sure plays with an edge. I don't know, a scam,
will he last more than 3 years in the NFL at this rate type edge that Dart's playing with, right? I mean, he definitely plays recklessly at the quarterback spot. I think it a little better if you have that at the safety position, right? I mean, for me, so they're out on the road. A lot of people are like, why are they going to Utah and why aren't they here? Why aren't they there? I actually think it was really important for them to start off and go back in camp in Utah for the week to let those kids know that, hey, we're at Michigan now, but we haven't forgotten you guys, or the players that we really liked, when we were at Utah. We haven't forgotten about you. And the same thing with maybe probably some of the high school staffs and stuff in the area, thinking like, hey, we're Michigan, we're going to recruit nationally, but this area is still really important to us, and it's still an area we feel like can help be the foundation, for Whittingham's tenure at Michigan, right? So the other thing too, guys like Dart, Ngata, Higginson, who I think we're going to talk about, versatility seems to be huge with the not so highly ranked guys that they've offered so far, right? It really seems more of an athletic profile that they're after at various positions, and guys that they look like or feel like that they're going to eventually coach up to become good players. I have zero problem with that. I mean, like we said, Whittingham has done, that's how he's built. That's how the program at Utah was built with him, was really uncovering gems, diamonds in the rough. And again, that doesn't mean they're not going to recruit the top guys in the country still. But there are routes, how much success Michigan's had success with underranked guys. We know how well Harbaugh and his staff developed and how some of those guys turned out. Kind of feels like Whittingham has taken a pretty similar approach in that regard with, Ngata, Dart, Higginson, like those types of guys really seem to fit that mold.
So it's a great segue. You mentioned Peyton Higginson, another guy that they clearly prioritized early here, Steve. What can you tell the folks about him?
Another, I would guess, I think both Dart and Higginson probably project to safety, although like we just got done talking about with versatility. The other thing is that Whittingham's he's shown an inclination to play guys both ways if they're capable, right? And take snaps on both sides of the football. So another wide receiver, defensive back type who had BYU and Utah offers already. So it's not just Whittingham, it's Guilford. I'm sure Stockton very aware of Higginson at Boise State too. So, but yeah, I mean, he's a little bit longer too. I believe he's like 6'3". Dart's more of your box type safety. I feel like at the next level, Higginson might be more of your ground cover, playmaker type guy. But again, the athletic profile looks really, really good. I mean, I thought his film was very solid. I think one thing again, not to say everything the staff does is perfect, but Utah looks like they got some guys under the radar that look like legit ball players. We talk about guys playing in certain states that would probably have a higher recruiting profile if they played in Texas or Georgia or Florida. I think a couple of these guys, Higginson in particular, looks like a guy I feel that way about. Feels like a guy who'd be seeing more offers come his way if he played in one of the bigger states. So, but yeah, maybe like a bigger version of Dart, right? Kind of plays up in the box, not afraid to go up in the air and grab the ball, can play both ways. But I feel like both those guys are primarily defensive recruits for Michigan right now, though.
Yeah, definitely is the case. We see them flexing in their old stomping grounds and trying to make that be some fertile ground for Michigan now. And that's what you do. Can you bring some players with you from your old stop? Can you bring some of those recruiting connections with you as well? And so, we'll see. We'll see if that winds up being the case. Another thing that we'll see is what kind of traction this new crew gets, or how quickly, because they'll get traction, but how quickly they get traction in this area. And one of the marquee guys that's going to be on display with is Dakota Guerrant. And so the 24/7 sports crew, our national analysts, got a chance to get an eyeful of Dakota down at the Battle for Miami. He was playing with South Florida Express. He has not, he is still sound mind, sound body, Max X. He's still down with them. That is his crew, but he went to play with SFE because he had something on his mind, and that something on his mind was, I want to prove I'm the best receiver in the country to these dudes doing these rankings. And it sounds like the 24 the rankings guys. I can't speak for them, and I have nothing to do with the rankings, but based on the show he put on, it sounds like he may be moving up in the rankings because they came away really impressed. And everyone there said he absolutely lit it up on the national stage with one of the top national teams out there in SFE. Now the question becomes, can Michigan get some traction here on their home turf? Understanding they have to build a new relationship, but they also inherit a burden that was on the old staff, and that burden is they got to prove something to him. Like he just said, he had to prove that he was the number one receiver in the country. Michigan has to prove to Dakota Guerrant that is going to throw the football. And so there was some reporting. There was some reporting that Michigan isn't in his top 3. If you've been listening to us at all, and Bryce and Steve, you can speak to this. We've always said that Michigan is they were not number 1. Maybe when they first offered him, remember they offered him as an 8th grader going into 9th grade. Maybe then they were on top. But all of this talk that we kept seeing last year about Michigan's on top for Dakota Guerrant, I have no idea what gave anyone that impression. Because, listen, I've been knowing the guys, the crew at Harper Woods, the coaches there, for 30 years, 20, 30 years. Rod Oden's case. Like, man, dude, 20 years. Wait, I guess I'm dating myself. Like, over 20 years with Rod Oden. Anyway, you get the point. They never led for Dakota last year. And the reason they didn't lead was because they had to show that they were going to throw the football. And when the season rolled around, I don't think they really made that case, Bryce. I don't think they did anything to inspire confidence.
Yeah.
They're going to throw the football.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, if you date back the season prior, that didn't help their case either. So he's going off of 2 years of really, really seriously looking at Michigan and seeing 0 passing attack. And I just think for him, and he's made it, like Sam, like you said, very clear to me every time I've talked to him that he obviously likes Michigan. He has plenty of connections. He's been to the school more than 15 times. He has a cousin on the team. Like, there's a lot of things that, just translate to him in Michigan. Why it would make sense. But at the same time, he's made it very abundantly clear he wants to get the ball, and he wants to know that they're going to throw the ball. And that's a big thing it's still wait and see, right? I know last year we had talked about when Chip Lindsey got the job of how he's selling basically hope, right? And a vision. But there was nothing behind that, right? There was no track record. There was no signs of it. It was just, this is the blueprint, and hopefully we're going to execute it, and hopefully you like it.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
Yeah, I guess my point, Steve, is this is not new. I think maybe that's what's jolting fans so much when they see a report that doesn't have Michigan in the top 3. Michigan is very much in his recruitment. They're just not. They're not at the top of his recruitment, and they haven't been at the top of his recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, in recruiting speak, there's an eternity of time here still too, right? I mean, there's plenty of time for Michigan to develop some of those relationships. I mean, Micah Simon, rest of the offensive staff. I think we talked before we got on. Marquise Haggins. Haggins is a guy that is familiar with the camp, so that's a good in there. But obviously, Jason Beck, the rest of the staff is going to have to start developing those relationships and stuff. But yeah, where I'm confused is the outline of this recruitment has actually been clearer than a lot of major recruitments at this point, right? I mean, we've said that he wants to see Michigan throw the ball more, and I think he said he wanted to see him win, which is kind of odd. I mean, it's been less than it's been 2 years since the national championship. Oregon has not done that. So, but still, with this staff, it is kind of a reset, in that regard too, maybe. But either way, I mean, yeah, I feel like this recruitment's actually been a lot clearer than a lot of them have, because that criteria has been pretty much from when his recruitment. I mean, yeah, like you said, they offered him a long, long time ago. But basically, since his recruitment really started to become at the forefront of his situation, I think what Michigan needs to do is pretty clear. I wonder if you guys agree. I think when there's a clear criteria like that, I think it actually can be a good thing for Michigan, because it says to me, if Michigan can do these things and prove that, then I could very well end up at Michigan. It's not a situation where there's no interest, right? It's like it's not an in-state kid who's going to go elsewhere. There's clear criteria here on Michigan's end to do things that will show him in his camp that he belongs at Michigan. And I mean, I don't think there's a clear criteria for Michigan State, let's say, in comparison. You know what I mean, though? It's like I almost look at that as a good thing where it's like, okay, if Michigan accomplishes these things that he's looking for, then we might be talking about them in that top 3, if not better. So, and there's time.
Yeah. It's a great point. The time part, like he's not making a decision tomorrow. Now, the interesting dynamic here is, there had been talk of him making a summer decision. Now, Michigan obviously needs the season to show him that they're going to do what Oregon is. I've been talking about the teams on Oregon and Ohio State. They put the ball up. They have receivers that go high in the draft. They won't be able to do. Michigan wouldn't be able to do anything about the draft part, but the throw the football and showing him progress there, willingness there. I think that can happen. I think in the interim, what you want to do is give him the feeling about his prioritization. That's what you can do in the interim. And this new staff, by all accounts, are going to make it a point to do just that. You got a new energetic receiver coach, great personality guy. Been getting all kind of messages about Micah Simon. But you also bring over a coach that he knows in Marcus Higgins, right? Marcus Higgins, who had been Penn State's receiver coach. And at one point, Penn State had moved to number 2 on his list. Like I got a lengthy interview, lengthy story coming over on the MichiganInsider.com. So be sure to check that out. If you are not a member, there is a great offer going on right now on the MichiganInsider.com, 2 months for $1. So you can't beat that. And you can try it out and read all the VIP content. But Penn State had moved to number 2 on his list at one point. And it was really on the strength of them presenting a picture of this is how we're going to prioritize you. This is how we're going to use you, and really selling him on that, even though, Penn State, you look at them, they don't like a passing offense, but they sold him the prospect of, well, one of the guys that was doing that and doing that well and presenting that case was Marcus Higgins. So having him in the fold is of great benefit to Michigan, as is the presence of Jacob Oden, who you mentioned, his cousin, and then Bryce Underwood. My very first interview with Dakota, he was a freshman. And, he came on. I had Bryce on that show. And then Dakota came on shortly after that. Loves Bryce. And been talking to, the Guerrants have been talking to the Underwoods about the early impressions of this coaching staff and what the offense is going to look like. Again, I'll be getting into that over on the MichiganInsider.com. But I mentioned that now to say that, hey, they got some feathers in their cap. Like they're in it. And they have a legitimate chance to make up ground. They got home field advantage. And so the onus is on Michigan to utilize that. Like, kill him with persistence and presence. It'll be impossible for other schools to match. The only one that could come close, say, maybe would be Ohio State. But, Ohio State has a new receiver coach. And Cortez Hankton that he didn't know. Brian Hartline. If Brian Hartline was there, I might say Ohio State was number 1 on the list. But I happen to think that's Oregon. That's my opinion. They didn't tell me that. But this is not cause for, oh my God, panic stricken. What happened to Michigan with Dakota Guerrant? This has been the case. They have work to do. I think what you like, Steve, and you make this point, you know exactly what you have to do. Like it's no secret. The things that they need to do here in the next couple of months. And that is Micah Simon get over to the school, keep the connection going with Marcus Higgins, like show him he's the guy. That'll go a long way towards kind of helping make up the ground or stave off any momentum these other schools have towards the decision. You don't want to have him make a summer decision, and then you got to work on flipping them, which, they are averse to doing. I think because it's Michigan, they would still have a shot there, but you don't want him to get to that point. You want him to delay his decision into the season. But again, no cause for panic. He's not making the decision tomorrow, Steve. I think you're on point with that.
Yeah, I think Burrell and Guerrant, you make sure, 1-2, as far as, being Midwest guys. Sales, I just think his interest is probably starting to lean a little bit elsewhere. I think it has for a while, especially, with Indiana winning the Natty. I think they're going to be right up there. I think Bama's always been there too. So not sure if I would be, I'd probably still recruit the guy, but I just, that might be too much of an uphill battle. We've seen them out west with, so I didn't confirm, but I'm pretty sure because Micah Simon was in Arizona. They went and saw Dante Tyson, who the previous staff offered. They saw Damani Warren out of Las Vegas, Nevada. So we're going to see them expand things a little bit, but it's not going to be at the expense of those two, of Guerrant and Burrell, right? Those are going to be the 1-2 guys, I think, no matter what. I think seeing what they've done with some of these, in contact with some of these other guys, is more not really contingency plan, but the second, maybe the 1B of the top of the board. Let's say you have your 1As with those guys, but yeah, I think you obviously, and I think Michigan will make it clear, right? Because again, here's the other thing too, not just Guerrant, but you got a receiver in 2028 at the same school who is really, really, really good too. So you don't want to, you want to build a bridge there, hopefully as well, right? DeAndre Bidden, who I believe is we have him ranked really high in the early 2028 stuff. So, there's multiple reasons why not only Michigan should, but I assume will continue to make Dakota the biggest priority for them at the receiver spot. But like you said, Sam, it can't be if you have a clear blueprint on how to get the kid, then I think we're going to expect Michigan to do what they can on and off the field to make sure that they can do what they can to get it done, right?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with DJ Bidden. He is a burner. He is a guy whose upside is tremendous. I think what he can borrow, what he's trying to borrow from Dakota is physically mature, like 6'2", 205 or 210, benching 315, so college body already, and already has those habits. Like he trains like a vet, like a college vet, and so that's different. With DJ Bidden, he's way more raw. Like it's all just I'm the best athlete out here, right? And so a lot of clay to mold, but the thing that you have with DJ is his affinity for Michigan has been clear. That Michigan being on the top of his list had been clear. Now I haven't talked to DJ about the coaching change, but there's a lot of foundation already laid there with Dakota. Again, to be clear, they've been chasing on Dakota. If they're the new one in the mix is Texas A&M being towards the top of his list. But again, as I said on the message board after that story came out and people were panicking, listen, this is what it's been. They've been chasing Oregon and Ohio State. There's been work to do there, and I think here's the irony: you get a clean slate to sort of make an impression, and I think these coaches are more apt to, hey, every time we leave, get ready to head to the airport. We're gonna make a beeline over to Harper Woods first, then come back to the airport. I think that's what you got to do. Like you You got to outwork the competition for the number one player in the state. I think that gets you to a point where you can convince him to, hey, we're not going to make this summer decision. I don't think that wasn't set in stone anyway, but you want this to go into the year. Now you can show him all the things that you were telling Andrew Marsh and Jamie French and JJ Buchanan, all those things that you were telling them, you're actually doing them, because it stood out to them that all the things they were telling them about what the offense was going to be last year, like, man, y'all not doing that. Now, it's great. It's great that Andrew Marsh started balling, but that did little to convince Guerrant that, hey, Michigan is going to pass the ball in a way that makes me think that I'm going to be able to do what I want to do as far as pro development is concerned. So, we'll see how it goes, but don't panic. And again, be on the lookout for that story coming up over on the MichiganInsider.com. Probably do a little some intel report and notes tonight, and then we'll get into a full story tomorrow over on TMI. So looking forward to that, fellas. Yeah, gotta take care of home first, especially when you consider another prospect that I think is going to rise up into the top 3 is Gideon Gash. And I just don't know. Like, that's going to be a tough one. Like, is there word that Sampson, did he stick with Michigan State? I know he was looking at Penn State.
He hasn't signed. He was going to wait till the winter deadline to sign, I believe. I don't know if Alabama's still in that one or not, but I know, yeah, Penn State got in, but he has not signed with Michigan State, to my knowledge. So I feel like we would know because it'd be on the board, and like he's been asked about 1 billion times at this point. So
yeah. So yeah, we'll see. But Gideon Gash is going to move up in the rankings, and if he goes to Michigan State, you'd be hard pressed to not have Sparty be the favorite for him to go back and play with his brother again. If he goes to Penn State, you'd like to think that there's an opportunity there, right? There's an opportunity to give him a look on the home front, because I know for a fact these new coaches, they know who. Not to say that the old coaches didn't, but I'm saying the new coaches know who Gideon Gash is. Like his star is on the rise. 6'3" corner. With good speed for that size, but very fluid. He's a problem. You talk to anybody in the state. So, you can't be talking about having like 3 top 100 guys and, one of them, you come out with what? Like, man, that they got work to do. And I know that they'll be on that job big time. But I want to get to some of these questions. If you have questions for us, pop them in the chat. Super chats go to the top, and we'll start knocking down some of your questions and comments as far as Michigan recruiting is concerned. And so we'll go all the way back to the beginning. And Nate from Indy says, when you get in the 27 breakdown, or when you get done with 27 breakdown, can you guys address what you heard about Taylor Tatum to safety? I can tell you what I've heard, not what I know is absolutely the case. I heard that he's been talking about trying both. So trying running back and safety, and then going to wherever he feels like he's gonna sort of play or contribute the most. That's what I've heard is the case. Now, will it work out that way once you get to camp when they realize, how things are looking, what the needs are? I imagine that could shift, where he could look at the lay of the land and say, hey, I'm going to have a better shot to play one of these. And it probably would be running back, but we'll see. And just going all out there to make sure that the position is locked in, because now you got Kuzdzal back. Maybe that then also skews things the other way. I mean, I can see it going either way, but the fact of the matter is I've heard that he's considering doing both in spring ball and then making a decision from there about what it's most likely going to be from that point on. So I still think it's most likely running back because he brings an element, a breakaway element, more of a breakaway element than the other guys. And I just think they're going to want to put that on the field. So, time will tell. I'm curious what you guys think about that.
First of all, the Bryce and Kuzdzal hate on the board is just ridiculous. We're talking about an RB3. My first thought, the other thing too, I saw Angelique from the Detroit. She talked to the Michigan baseball coach who said that Tatum actually said, I just want to be at Michigan. Said that his outfield experience, he thinks he can play the safety spot. I guess if Kuzdzal's coming back, I have no problem with Michigan trying this out. Will it work? No idea. But if you're talking, him possibly making a dent at safety, and you can't live with Jordan Marshall, Savion Hyder, and Bryson Kuzdzal as your top 3 running backs, I don't really know what to tell you. I mean, it's one of those things where let's just see how it plays out. Then we can start to opine on whether or not it's the right move or whatever. To me, it's like I believe he's participating in the winter workouts, right? So that means I'm assuming the staff has some awareness of A, what they have, and B, what his desires might be. Like if he wants to give it a try at safety first, see how it goes. Like, again, why not? I just don't understand. One thing too is, and again, I do think Tatum still has the possibility to be an impact player, but I do think people are just still too in love with that high school ranking at this point. I mean, he still has a lot to prove at the college level. He really has not produced yet. So, I think I'm always in the wait and see camp. I always kind of try to take the position of like, try to understand it where the coaches are coming from. And knowing that he's open to it, then so be it, because the other thing I thought was this could also say a lot about what Savion Hyder might be bringing to the table as that second running back, right? I mean, It's like we think we believe that we have a great 1-2 combo, and Tatum's assets were really more about the athletic side of things coming out of high school, and we have this elite athlete who can play running back, but has experience playing baseball, which obviously playing in the outfield has a lot of, it's all about covering ground in a short amount of time. He plays a physical game on the running back side as well. So, he's not afraid of contact. It's like, that was my first thought was they must feel really, really good about Savion Hyder. And again, if you're telling me like, Bryson Kuzdzal as a running back 3 is great, in my opinion, still knowing what you have at 1 and 2, and we've seen before Michigan, you talk about you want to jump to next year, which some people already were. Well, what are they going to do if Tatum plays safety? Michigan is spent in the portal at running back. That's how they got Justice Haynes in the first place. Running back might be the lowest position on the list of like present concern and future concern on the roster with how it's constructed, with having Tony Alford on board and Michigan's willingness to spend in the portal when they need a guy in the portal, right? So, because a lot of the reaction was, well, why didn't they bring Justice Haynes back? And it's like they didn't. The guy commanded too much money, and you just signed the number 1 running back in the country, who might be the best high school back in the last 5 or 6 years, And then you got Jordan Marshall, obviously the bell cow, one of the leaders of the team. So, that never made any sense. That reaction doesn't make any sense to me either. So, I'm just like, let's see how it goes. And then go from there, right? I mean, and the kid is more than willing. I mean, he already, the quote that he just wanted to be at Michigan. I'm excited if I hear that, and I'm a Michigan fan, right? I mean, he's a guy looking to make any kind of impact that he possibly can. So, fascinating. We'll see if it works out.
Yeah, man. Says a lot about Bryce Kuzdzal, by the way, that he came back to Michigan to be RB3. Maybe RB4.
Yep.
Obviously he they're paying he's collecting a heftier NIL sum than he commanded last year, but he had opportunities to go and be higher on the depth chart elsewhere. So loves Michigan and is willing to compete. So yeah, I think that sets a great tone, gives Michigan a great security blanket. And I think that for Taylor Tatum, I think you're probably looking at that saying, hey, what if I'm splitting RB3 sort of touches with Bryce and Kuzdzal? Might there be more of an opportunity to get on the field at safety again? Not saying that he's going to be a safety. I've only heard that he's going to give both a try and see where that leads him at that point. Again, I'm still skewing running back, but playing time means something.
Right.
That could,
so I see the comment. Given we lost 2 studs at running back last year, are we good running Kuz for 3 or 4 games if Marshall and Hyder go down? First of all, that's not how the coaching staff's going to operate. 2, are we good with Taylor Tatum for 3 or 4 games? He's been injury prone, and to be fair, he's had fumble issues. He had fumble issues at Oklahoma, which I think prevented them a few times from going in his direction. So, what team in the country is good at running their third back? Michigan had to do it this year. I thought Kuzdzal gave an admirable performance for a guy who had to be the bell cow for the last 4? Mm-hmm. No, Marshall was banged up, but either way, had to be the bell cow for at least 2 or 3 of Michigan's games this year. We're talking about the third running back. Michigan's fine at running back. So yeah.
Yeah, and safety, we're talking Mason Curtis, who's back. It'll be interesting to see if I think at one point I thought it was going to be the case that you might see Zeke there, but I think Zeke will be nickel. And with the additions that they made, you get Rod Moore back, of course, in that room. That's huge. You're looking at what does that depth chart, that safety depth chart look like, and there could be a clearer path. I'm not saying that there won't be. I just would be surprised if Michigan looked at him and said, "Hey, we aren't going to try to harvest that big playability at running back." Because we saw how valuable that was with Justice Haynes, and so
that could be. Again, we talked earlier with some of the recruits that they're offering. They're not afraid to play guys both ways too, right? So if you're talking RB3/4 with Kuzdzal, and he shows enough to maybe play situationally at the safety position, then we could easily see him at both spots. How many carries do we think an RB3 or 4 is going to get in a normal season when 1 and 2 are playing the whole year? It's really not that much, right? So it could be about having a good ball of clay, an elite ball of clay, athletically, to try to see what you can get out of him on either side of the ball.
Yeah, so it probably Mason Curtis and Jordan Young.
Yeah, Jordan Young.
Yeah, Mason Curtis.
Kanoa Winston.
Yeah, Kanoa Winston. Absolutely.
Yeah. See what he comes out with this year.
And Rod Moore. Now, where is Rod? Where is Rod in his recovery from, man, you just hope he catches a break. And if you're Taylor Tatum, you could look at that and say, might that rotation fit me more in the mix? But I'll go back to what I said before. There's that big play potential. And Steve, you might be on to something. Maybe he'll show that he can handle doing both. And if that's the case, great. Take advantage of that. Another question that we'll get to has to do with a big-time recruit or comment. This is from S. Greg West. It says Michigan paid a lot of money to land Ty Haywood for a year to sit on the bench and leave, moving to a new recruiting model with their evaluations. Who were you going to I'm curious who you were going to play Ty Haywood over last year. they could have re-upped with Ty Haywood, but think about who emerged. That money went to Zach Frazier. You're not gonna pay Zach Frazier? I mean, that is just, to me, one of the choices that you have to make as far as recruiting in this age, in this era, is concerned. You can't pay everyone, and because you can't pay everyone, you're gonna have to let some guys go. Andrew Granera, Andrew Sprague and Jake Granera. Those guys commanded more money to come back out of the portal, and so you had to sacrifice a guy that maybe you thought had some potential, but you got a chance to see for a year, and we saw some where they upped the ante potential wise, and some where they said, "Hey, you know what? We're going to invest in the vets and maybe one guy who they think is generational, and that's Andrew Babalola." So I don't really see his departure as a sign of a poor eval or something off with development or anything like that. I think that's just one of the tough choices you have to make as far as the finances are concerned, Bryce.
Yeah, you're gonna also have guys that make a lot of money sit the bench too. Look at the running back position. Those guys are getting paid pretty handsomely, and you're only playing one running back at a time. So I'm not. It's not a huge deal because every school has this, right? Ohio State has this problem. Alabama has this problem. Any school has this problem. I think the other thing too is interesting. I guess there's a different conversation, but how many schools are going to take the Indiana approach and essentially look for guys that have a chip on their shoulder, maybe lower ranked? Hopefully you can pay them less, develop them, and then maybe spend that cash in the portal for just older veteran guys. But I don't know how long-term that can be. I still, for my preference, would say build a recruiting class and supplement the roster through the portal instead of make your roster the portal. Because I feel like we've seen a lot of teams over the years. Colorado's done this. Michigan State's done this, where they've taken 60 guys, like a crap ton of guys, through the portal. And what have they gotten, right? So that's how I look at that, though.
Yeah, man. It's one of those things where I think fans have got to get used to. They got to get used to it. Get used to what we were talking about as far as the the portal is concerned, and making these very, very tough decisions. So Blake Frazier, my bad. Blake Frazier. But you have to pay. You got to pay Blake Frazier, and I told you Blake was going to be a guy last summer, and so one of those deals where I'm going to go with production over potential. Brice Marich, isn't that what you said? Production over potential.
I mean, that's me. But some of the guys you're going to take, like Edna, you're going to have some potential guys on your roster, right? It's just, you can't have all production guys. It's just impossible. You're going to have some potential guys. So,
yeah. All right. On to the next one. This comes from Alan Saunders, 449. Bryce Underwood didn't have a good freshman season. The new.
I'll finish it.
Yeah. I think I don't know how much came across. It says so receivers want to come to Michigan because of Underwood's greatness. I think it was one of those deals where Bryce still has some pull in terms of getting top receivers to want to come. Jamie French, right? Travis Johnson. I think it's more, and he has pull with Dakota Guerrant. Like, of all the receivers that he's going to have pull with, despite his freshman season, it would be Dakota. I think this is all about willingness to feature the passing game. Bryce could have had, let's say Bryce was a 60+% thrower last year, right? I still think Dakota Guerrant would favor Ohio State and Oregon based on the emphasis in the passing game. So Michigan is going to have to show that a receiver can you have 1,000-yard receiver at Michigan as a 60% thrower? I don't know that a receiver would have gotten there last year. But can you have a 1,000-yard receiver? Can you have multiple receivers do well over the course of the season? It's going to be about emphasis, guys. So, yes, Bryce does need to improve. I'm not suggesting that in any way, shape, or form. But I don't think the issue is that, hey, guys don't look at Underwood as a guy they would want to come play with. I still think he has that kind of pull.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce is younger than Michigan's 2027 quarterback commit. Like, Peter Bork is older than Bryce Underwood. That's how young Underwood was coming into this. We expected bumps in the road, right? I mean, it's not like he's going to walk in and play at a Heisman level right away. Michigan obviously had some injuries up front and obviously at back too, which I think probably thwarted things a little bit. But no, there's still going to be pull. He's still going to get, I think Bryce is still going to be visible enough in the national media as a guy who's going to ascend for him to be a household name heading into the year. And yeah, of course, I think it's not wild to believe that Michigan's going to need to show more at the receiver position. I think maybe as important, like you kind of mentioned it, Sam, like not just having one guy stand out, but just having multiple legit options out there, having the receiver position as a whole produce, at a higher level than they have for the last 4 or 5 years. So yeah, I mean, I kind of get the sentiment, but I don't think it's, if anything, Bryce is still a plus in the department as far as Michigan attracting receivers to the roster, right? I mean, like you mentioned, Jamie French, I don't even think he'd have been interested. I don't think Michigan would have even come up if it wasn't for Bryce. So yeah, I mean, he's already paid dividends, and it's only going to start to pay more dividends once we see that progress on the field, which I think we all fully expect to see this season.
I don't know where that notion comes from. Like, receivers want to play with Bryce Underwood for sure, but in Dakota Guerrant's case, his issue is with the strategy, not with the quarterback. And I think they see what we saw, a quarterback that just needs to be developed. One of the biggest oversights was the lack of investment in quarterback development. The old staff was going to course correct and hire a quarterback coach, but in retrospect, and I said this before, that was a big part of year one. I told you earlier in the season, you got to run him. I disagree with that. Later in the year, say, hey, they need to have a quarterback coach. It's more apparent now than even at the beginning of the year. That's a tough duality for an OC to have, which is why, and I guess I'll say it here now on this show. I talked about how I think maybe on the message board about how Chip Lindsey wanted to bring in a quarterback coach first year, and that guy was going to be Clyde Christensen. That is, you talk about knowledge and expertise in the field of quarterback coaching. Can you imagine having a guy who coached Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Andrew Luck as your quarterback coach? I mean, what would that have done for Bryce Underwood? Now, again, there was going to be a course correction, and they were interviewing my man from South Carolina. Why is his name escaping me?
Oh, Shula.
Yeah. They were interviewing Shula to come in and be the QB coach. So they understood we got to address this. You got to invest in it. Speaking, you see Michigan investing in receivers now. Like they're spending more at the receiver position now than they ever than the first few years of NIL for sure. You don't spend that kind of money unless you plan to emphasize the position more on the field, right? You're not gonna waste that investment. So, and I think investment, you need to invest in developing your quarterback. And you do that sometimes by bringing in more staff members. And they're doing that on the offensive side of the ball this coming year with Bryce Underwood, because they plan to utilize those skills more. So, yeah, I think people need to pump the brakes on the, hey, don't know if guys really like Bryce anymore. Receivers want to come play with him. I mean, when they see what we see, just another young dude, really super talented guy that still needs he needs development too. He needs coaching too. And he's going to get that now. Let's go.
Sam, there's real quick. I've seen a couple quick questions about the transfer portal linebacker from Cal. I can't remember his name, but he just entered. He's going to be going to Ole Miss. And I know Michigan's not going to get involved at all, from what I've been told. So I just want to just throw that out there, just so people can get the answer real quick.
Yep, that's a good one.
I mean, linebacker, and I see a bunch of comments about linebacker. They got an older guy, Nathaniel Stalling from North Dakota State. I think he's 6'2", 235, 240. So he's kind of like an old school type of linebacker. Over 90 tackles last year. I like the film. He's not the most athletic guy, but he brings experience. He's hard-nosed. He fits the defense. And the other thing too, and Sam and Steve, you might have different opinion. I don't know how many linebackers there are, quality linebackers still in the portal, that people can realistically say, like, let's get this guy. That's just, I think this staff is going to have to experiment a little bit. Mm-hmm. We talked about position changes with Taylor Tatum. I think you could see guys moved around, Ryan, see guys experiment. And I think this staff in particular, they used to do that a bunch at Utah. So I'm going to be real curious of what guys play in what positions, right? I mean, for me personally, one of the position groups I'm most curious about is offensive line. Like the offensive line, the starting five, I feel like you could pick several different combinations because there's so many guys in the mix. So I'm going to be real curious to see what they do on linebacker, because I don't know realistically how many viable quality starting caliber linebackers are still in the portal.
Yeah, this one I've seen. This one, Nate from Indy has said Mason Curtis, the linebacker. I haven't heard anything to suggest that's in the cards. So who do you expect to be your starting safety? You can't bank on. I'm not saying it can't be Rod, but you can't bank on that right now. You can't plan on that. Like, Mason Curtis is your most experienced safety. You're not talking about moving him to linebacker and having no experience at safety if Rod doesn't. I mean, limited experience with Jordan Young, but having no real extensive playing experience at the position. So I think at linebacker, you're banking on those young guys really stepping to the fore. Nate Usu-Boateng, at one point, wasn't he the number one linebacker in the country at one point? He was high up there.
I think he was.
He was top 2 or 3 for sure early on, and looked good. Looked more like that guy in his limited playing time than the guy that fell down the rankings. Like he kind of took one of those random falls down the rankings, and then we see him on the field, and then he
got injured, remember? So they forgot about.
But when I'm just curious.
Well, and he didn't go to Notre Dame. Oops, sorry. Did I say that out loud? Oops.
I'm just curious too. Like, wouldn't you want like Owusu Boateng over some guy in the portal? Like just somebody, right? Like just getting
right. I think we talked about this on the board. I think there's this like shiny prize idea with any player out of the portal. Like no matter people who don't know anything about the actual player themselves and what they bring to the table. It's just this idea that bringing in a guy from the outside is automatically going to be an improvement or better than what either Michigan already has on the roster or, is coming up through the freshman ranks or whatever. So yeah, I mean, of course there's great players in the portal every year at every position, but you start just name dropping random dudes saying, well, what about this guy? And it's like, they're far from a sure thing too. I mean, it's not but also the other thing, isn't Michigan going to be running more 2 linebacker stuff with Jay Hill than they were in the past too? So like, that's another thing where it's like, they don't necessarily need, I don't know. I just don't think that losing Cole Sullivan was huge. We talked about that on that pod. There's just that might have been the biggest loss as far as like positional and upward mobility. I mean, he was already looking like a difference maker, but I think he's going to be even better. But that doesn't mean you just take a guy out of the portal for the sake another guy. Let's say because they already took 3 or did they take 4? They took Moa. They took Alford. They took the North Dakota State kid. Some reason
Pierce.
Yeah, Christian Pierce. Yeah, they took 4 guys out of the portal. So, couple brother situations, but still, take another one just to take another one. It's just kind of an odd deal. So,
it doesn't make. It does not make sense to drop $1 million. I don't think that was the price tag, but no, you had to move some of those resources towards a guy in Blake Frazier who you realize is like he's got to be on the field. And the salary he commands this year is not the salary he commanded last year. So politics demand you make some tough decisions and you wish Ty Haywood the best. Yes, I do. Absolutely.
So
I would hope.
Do not make the same mistake Ohio State did with Antoine Winfield Jr. Please. Like that's what I've been thinking the whole time. It's like Ohio State never really prioritized him. He went to Minnesota. He's still in the NFL. He might end up having a longer pro career than his dad did. Yeah. So absolutely. They will and they should.
Yeah, Antoine Winfield Jr. was a fantastic player at Minnesota. I think he's been an even better pro.
Yep.
About that. But we mentioned Nate Owusu Boateng, Chase Taylor showed some promise in that mix as well. You remember Troy Bowles came over as
Bowles. Yeah, I forgot about Bowles.
Yeah, came over as a transfer from UGA. He's a talented athlete, football pedigree. With his dad being Todd Bowles, like you got some options there. They're just all relatively green. And so therein lies some of the angst and some of the nervousness. But, you got to grow those guys up. It's as simple as that. You got to grow those guys up. It would have been great if you could have kept Cole, but they couldn't. So, you roll with the punches. Here's another couple of questions here. Let's see. What were we talking about? I don't know what this is in reference to, unless Poly or Beagle are those guys. And either Titan or Vallejo have a Mason type frost year. I can't remember what the topic was that brought that
needing another defensive lineman, I'm sure.
Yeah, Poly had a really good bowl prep. Manuel Beagle has been hurt. So I don't know where he will be physically as far as a readiness in spring ball. So I think Poly would be your best bet to be, a dude of that mix, to be a dude that sort of rises up and really gives them something on the interior. Tara Nelson, 8841 says, anyway, Michigan can lower the academic standards so we can get more transfers eligible to play. No. Not happening. That has been made abundantly clear that they will not lower, admissions will not lower the standard to accommodate athletics. People want, I think the bigger hurdle has been the credits transferring. And I guess the logic is, it's not about lowering academic standards. It's changing the requirements for transfers. And the 60 credit threshold is something that they hold hard and fast to. And they don't make exceptions for athletes that they won't make for other students as far as that's concerned. I mean, is that the way to go? At Michigan, they're saying, yeah, that's the way to go. And they aren't going to budge off of that. So you just got to get creative. You can have a guy who is maybe close to graduation complete the credits towards graduation at that other school. So you can do that. And then that way, those credits count towards graduation there. Look at a guy like Jaden Mangum. So he graduated with a Michigan State degree while he was at Michigan. You can do that. So, some other, and I think Isaiah Moa. I think you're going to see Isaiah Moa look to try to get probably. I would bet you it's a BYU degree. Is what I think he'll go for. You got to try to figure out ways to work around something that's not going to change, and that's not going to change. Curious what you guys think of this one. Is Smith Snowden better at corner or safety?
I'd say nickel, if that's an option.
Yeah,
I'd probably play him. I like him at cornerback.
Yeah, I think he'll play
more at corner, don't you?
Yeah, I think he'll play more at corner.
But don't you think the need is also more at corner than safety? Like you had up right now?
Because it allows you to play Zeke at nickel.
Yep.
And I think for Zeke, I think it's better for his pro prospects to play there or play back at safety. To be in the box. He's shown that he can hold his own in coverage, so he won't be intimidated lining up over a slot. Outside the corner, man, he did well. I mean, Zeke was second team All Big Ten, but he wants to go and be a pro, and I don't think that would be the case at corner as much as it would be the case if he were a nickel safety. So.
Would you? I'm curious, Sam.
He can play nickel. You got to have more than one guy that plays nickel. So I think you'll maybe see him there some, but I think primarily he'll be a corner.
You think they're going to try him on offense?
I don't know. You got so many receivers now.
I mean, the staff used them. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm curious.
Yeah, it's a good question.
He could do it.
He can do it, but you got a lot of receivers in here that got paid a lot of money, and that are going to be like, "Hey, wait a minute, those balls that we get to some guy coming over here, I need to get some of those."
Yep.
Like I think I'm not saying that he won't give it a shot, but how much will that be in the mix here at Michigan, given all the investment they put in? At receiver, I'd be surprised if it's like it was at Utah. I'd be surprised. I think that kind of winds down the questions. There's a lot of talk about topics we've already covered here. Make sure that I don't miss anything. Yeah, we got some some comments on the way out. The offense, as long as Bryce improves, should be excellent. Very excited. The D could still be top 20 type D. Not expecting 23 level, though, from Keanu with 84.45. And another comment says, I love football, but life is bigger than football. That's talking about changing the academic standards. Not academic, but transfer standards. Michigan is not going to do that. So, yeah.
Love that comment. That's a great comment.
Yeah. A great way to get on out. So, yeah, we appreciate you guys with all the questions. We went a little longer because we wanted to answer what you guys had on your minds. So hopefully we addressed most of the questions here today. Want to encourage those of you who are not over on the MichiganInsider.com, take advantage of the newest promo. And we have another one, right, Steve? That's right for the people?
Yeah, I think we're still at 50%, right? So other thing, because it's this weekend, we've talked about it before at the end. So UFC 324 is on Saturday. You do have to pay full price for a sub, but you get free Paramount Plus. I've said if you're a diehard UFC fan and you're a Michigan fan, you might as well sub, and you're no longer paying for the $89.99 a month for the pay-per-views on ESPN. You know, it's like $1,200 if you order all of them. Now you can just get them for free with your subscription here. I think that's a big deal. I know we always talk about the shows too, but that's a huge new perk that's popping up this weekend. So, but yeah, 50% off though if you're not interested in the UFC. If you just want to get the scoop, it's 50% off, and it's going to be 50% off for a little bit. I'm not sure when they're going to end that one, but either way, again, there's never a dull day, at this point. So, there's really no downtime to subscribe. I feel like there's always something going on, and we've been all over the coaches on the road and new offers, some re-offers, some new targets, spring balls in what? Month and a half? So, things are always happening.
Yeah. And it just, there was a point here that I wanted to address on the way out. This one from A2 Fan 71 says, I get not lowering standards, but credits at UC Berkeley should be equal credits at U of M, so they should make exceptions for athletes transferring. The issue becomes, are you going to make exceptions for everyone? If you accept transfer credits for athletes, then a regular student transferring over is going to say, well, why don't my credits transfer too? You're going to have to do that for everyone. And I think that's the barrier. That's the precedent that they don't want to set. They don't want to change that requirement for the general student body, so they won't change it for athletes. Now, maybe you're saying, A2 Fan, that UC Berkeley credit should transfer for any student. And who's to say that you don't have a point? I think their point is they want the majority of a Michigan degree credits towards a degree to come from Michigan. I think that's the standard that they're looking to uphold. They don't want to have 70 credits towards a Michigan degree coming from another institution. That's just how they've chosen to go about it, and they have made it clear they aren't changing. So can you complain about or lobby that all students should be able to have this? I don't think you won't make any hay saying, hey, we need football players to be able to football and basketball transfer.
I was just going to say, contrary to popular belief, there's a massive amount of kids that want to go to the University of Michigan that don't care about 3-star portal offensive linemen from California trying to transfer, right? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of kids, a lot of people out there, many do, but a lot don't, and until they're not going to change it if they can't do it universally.
Yeah, and I hear he says that's what he's saying. He said, that's what I'm saying. Make the transfer credit situation equal for all students except more than 60 credits, and make that argument for all students. Don't go in there talking about athletes, right? To say all students should have this. I just think you're ice skating uphill. So anyway, that's going to do it for us here today. Be on the lookout for the Dakota Guerrant story. I'll have some intel tonight. Full story coming up. I talked to his man. I must have talked to Gerald Guerrant for I don't know how long, an hour, about everything the people are saying, everything that's going on. So I got a lot to sort through. Michigan is still in it. What I'll tell you guys here is Michigan is absolutely still in it in a significant way for the number one player in the state, one of the top receivers in the country. But they're still chasing like they had been, like they were last year. Still the same scenario as far as that's concerned. More on that over on the MichiganInsider.com. That's going to do it for us in this edition of the Michigan Recruiting Insider. We'll see you next time.